Assalamu alaikum to all our viewers. Welcome back. I'm your host today, Sayyid Nazim Kazmi, and with me today again, expending their valuable time and to help us with this ninth show in this topic are Sayyid Ferdous and Sayyid Al-Imam, and we are continuing with the deception and the misinterpretations and the attempt to obfuscate the historical events leading up to the attack on the door of the daughter of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon her. If we look at the reports, historical reports and narratives regarding the event, we see a plethora of Sunni academia who have mentioned these reports. And what we have seen are snippets of the events. At some points, one narrator has focused on one angle and aspect, and at other times, another narrator has tried to, or another historian or an academic has tried to focus on a different angle and aspect. But what is beyond doubt is that the events of Saqifah were to some extent manufactured and manipulated, and which ultimately led to people who claim to be friends and companions of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be on him and his progeny, who then came and attacked the very family of the Prophet that the Prophet told them to honor and respect. So in today's show, hopefully we'll be discussing some of the narratives contained by some of the Sunni academics and scholars, the quite classical scholars such as Ibn Qutaybah, Jawhari and Tabari, some of whom we've mentioned in the past, and others amongst them who we shall also be discussing. But looking at these various narratives, we can build up a picture. But fortunately with me today, I'll ask Sayyid Ferdous and Sayyid Al-Imam to help build that picture and to get an overview and a fuller understanding of what took place. So without much further digression, I will pass it on to Sayyid Al-Imam. Could you explain a little of the theme that's going to be running with today and trying to contextualize what we will be discussing?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Nazim Kazmi, for that wonderful introduction as always. And we are going to look at the events of Saqifah Banu Saida and what led up to the initial attack that was made on Sayyidah Fatima Sallallahu house. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the historical reports besides each other, and we're going to try to understand maybe more information in terms of what happened. Because as we previously discussed, when it comes to censorship, unfortunately, Sunnis are quite famous for censorship, especially when it comes to the vices of the Sahaba. So to get a bigger picture of what actually happened, we have to put the reports together. And we've discussed this in our previous shows as well, about trying to get all the evidence together, trying to get a better picture of what occurred on that day and what occurred after. So in today's show, me and Sayyid Ferdous, to make it a bit more interesting, we're going to both engage with the evidences we're going to present. So it's going to be basically me and Sayyid Ferdous going back and forth. And I would probably stick with reading the passages and commenting, and Sayyid Ferdous also will be giving his views and thoughts in the process.
Thank you, Sayyid Al-Imam. That's certainly clarifies for me and hopefully for the listeners the structure to this show. Sayyid Ferdous, can you tell us what specifically we'll be looking at, and if you could tell us a bit more about the contents today.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Thank you very much for introducing the topic, Sayyid Ali. Yes, as you said, we are talking about the famous narration, which is actually famous through Ibn Qutaybah, but actually if you see the content and also the chain of this narration, this narration, which is a pretty much long narration, has been narrated by other scholars as well. So the thing is that Ibn Qutaybah has been attacked, or his book Al-Imama al-Siyasa has been attacked by Salafi scholars. So due to the content that it has, and they have objected to the book that it cannot belong to Ibn Qutaybah. And the source of it is because they have ideological problems with the content, because he does not hide, so to speak, like the rest of their scholars do, like the scholars of hadith usually do, in hiding the history and distorting it much. He does that. He does, of course, also rely on sources which could be also distorted and changed, and have been cut out some part of that. That's something that we will show also, inshallah. But in any case, it's a more kind of open description of events. It's not so like the others, which are mostly very unclear. Here we have more details, especially because it's a long narration, and it has some details. Still, if you put them side to side to other narrations, you'll see most of these details are just repeating the same things that other stories and books have already said. In any case, this narration, as I said, it's the same narration basically. It comes from a narrator by the name Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman ibn al-Ansari, and his full name has been mentioned in Tabari. So this long narration has been, we present them from three books, from the Tarikh of Tabari, and he mentions it through each chain from Muhammad, from Abi Mikhnaf, from Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman al-Ansari. And interestingly, this is the only narration through Abi Mikhnaf, the famous historian. And we will show also what part he has completely cut off of Tabari, has just removed it and does not discuss it or present it in his book. And then we have al-Jawhari in his book Saqifah and Farid through his chain, not through Abi Mikhnaf this time, but from Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman al-Ansari as a top narrator, and through another chain, which is Ahmad ibn Ishaq, from Ahmad ibn Sayyar, from Sayyid ibn Kathir ibn Ufair. And this Sayyid ibn Kathir ibn Ufair also appears in the chain of Ibn Qutaybah. So basically, if you look at the diagram of this narration, you'll see the kind of the chains of each of these three historians for this narration. We do not want to discuss the apparently also Ibn Qutaybah, something that I should not forget, has actually two chains for it. Even though we see here in the text just one chain presented, but in a previous page he mentions actually two chains. But discussing the chains and so on, we do not intend to do it in this session, because it will become too long and also too boring for most viewers. Maybe for another time if need be. In any case, as we said, the main narrator of Ibn Qutaybah and Jawhari is Ibn Kathir from someone by the name Abi Aun, from Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman al-Ansari, and then the version of Tabari, which comes from Abi Mikhnaf from that person. So these are the three chains, basically. And the contents, we will see also, we have, as Said Ali will read them, and we have in this table, in each cell or each box, you see the Arabic text of each narration, and also the translation side by side, each three of them. And Said Ali will discuss each one and present it to you, and also explain the differences of these three versions for each passage. Passage, so they are talking about the same thing. It comes from the same narrative, as we said, but you see slight variations sometimes, and sometimes complete paragraphs are just removed and so on. Yeah. So sometimes these in these boxes you see some variations. Some things have been or in some cases one of these stories had more content, one of them has less, and some differences in the sentences also, maybe some slightly, or sometimes as I said, complete passages or paragraphs are missing from one version. In any case, the main thing to say, important thing, is that we are not basing this entire, as I said at the beginning, we do not base this show entirely on Ibn Qutaybah's narration, because at the end of the day, he is not the only narrator. We have at least two other narrators side by side, which is Jawhari and Tabari, even though Tabari's one is a bit shorter and he does not discuss the last part, which discusses about the pledge of allegiance of Zubair and Bani Hashim and so on. He completely removed that part. We will see that. But in any case, the entire narration is the same. Jawhari has the same thing from the same narrator, and he has more details. And he mentions also the Bani Hashim allegiance and so on. And Ibn Qutaybah is also another supportive, so to speak, narration. Another chain for the same narration, as I said, or two chains. And basically the content is the same, and you see the variations, and you the weight of this is to show you how these stories have been intentionally manipulated sometimes, especially the parts which are very important, crucial. So they have been manipulated a lot. And even the one we said that are more a bit open, you see parts that are distorted, that are just a mix of narrations and narratives that the author or the people from whom he narrates want to push a certain narrative to the listener, and that's why you see these differences. We will highlight those and show you how they have manipulated these stuff and changed it. In any case, as I said, we do not want to indulge into proving whether the book of Imam al-Siyasa is a legit book, it's an attribution to Ibn Qutaybah is correct or not. It needs its own show. Basically, we will sometimes maybe we can do a show dedicated to that topic. In any case, we do not want to also discuss the narrators of each of these chains, because it will also, as I said, become too long. So we will just read the content and compare them, and you will see as time goes, and you'll see our aim of what we want to do, present to you, and you will see also the process of these changes and how these changes happened, and what could be the reason, and why are most of the time the parts which are more crucial, more controversial, so to speak, have been manipulated and changed or removed and so on. So this is basically the aim. Thank you very much. And I think Said Ali will read those passages and present his comments about them. And then we'll continue like this. Yeah, thanks.
So I'll start with Tabari first. Ibn Qutaybah being the one who's, this particular book being the one that's slightly more problematic. So we'll see to what extent he documents or what the events have been documented in this book. Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Umar al-Ansari. When the Prophet passed away, the Ansar gathered in the shed of Banu Saidah. The Ansar said, "Let us appoint Sa'd ibn Ubada to be in charge of our affairs after Prophet Muhammad." They made Sa'd come out to them, but he was sick. And after they had gathered, he said to his son or one of his cousins, "Because I'm ill, I cannot make my words heard by all those people. Take my speech from me and make them hear it." So he spoke, and then he memorized what he said. So he spoke, and the man memorized what he said and said in a loud voice so that his companions would hear it. After praising and exalting God, he said, "Company of Ansar, you have precedence in religion and merit in Islam that no other tribe of the Arabs can claim. Muhammad remained 10 odd years in his tribe, calling them to worship the merciful and to cast off idols and graven images. But only a few men of his tribe believed in him, and they were able neither to protect the apostle of God, nor render his religion strong, nor to divert from themselves the oppression that befell them all, until when he intended excellence for you, he sent nobility to you and distinguished you with grace. Thus God bestowed upon you faith in him and his apostle, and protection for him and his companions, and your strength, and for him and his faith in the battle of jihad for his enemies. You were the most severe people against his enemies who were among you, and the most troublesome to his enemies who were not from among you, so that the Arabs became upright in God's cause, willingly or unwillingly. And the distant one submitted in abject humiliation until through you God made great slaughter in the earth for his apostle. And by your swords the Arabs were abased for him. When God took the prophet to himself, he was pleased with you and consoled by you. So keep control of this matter to yourselves, obviously pertaining to leadership, to the exclusion of others, for it's yours and yours alone. They answered, call him together. Your opinion is right, and you have spoken correctly. We will not diverge from your opinion. We shall put you in charge of this business, for indeed you are sufficient for us and the satisfactory to whosoever is righteous among the believers. Now, I'm not going to read what the other historians have recorded about this event. It's not necessary for me to do that. But the viewers, if you're interested to read them side by side, you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to pause the screen, have a look, and see what some, like for example, see what al-Jawhari included, which is slightly less compared to what Tabari's recorded. And then you may have a slightly longer narrative of that particular event recorded by Ibn Qutaybah. Sayyid Ferdous, do you want to comment and just give our viewers a general background in terms of what's actually going on here?
So as you read the narrations, Adee ibn Ubada, who was the chief of Khazraj, so he is just talking and says basically to Ansar that because you helped Islam to grow, and you helped the Prophet to come to your city, and you support his religion, so it's basically all your achievement in helping the Prophet, in helping the Islam to defeat his enemies. So you deserve most the successorship or the leadership of this matter, meaning the command over Muslims. And the Ansar then say that you are telling the truth, and that's basically what we also think, and we want to choose you as our leader. Basically, that's what he says. And as you said, the narration, the variation between the three in this part of the narration, the first part, is basically the same. It's not so much difference. The words might be sometimes different, but the basic message is the same thing. So then you can continue to the next part.
Thank you very much. So, okay, coming back to Tabari. But then they began to debate among themselves, and some said, what if the Muhajireen and the Quraysh refuse, saying, we are the Muhajireen and the first companions of the Apostle of God. We are his kinsmen and his friends. So why do you dispute this matter with us after him, meaning the matter of leadership? So the Ansar were concerned here. They were thinking, well, hold on a second. If we make this decision, if we go ahead with it and appoint Sa'd ibn Ubada as being our chief, as being our leaders, what would the Muhajireen say about this? Okay, this is what the Ansar are saying here ultimately. And then again, the same thing al-Jawhari's reported. And interestingly, but Qutaybah doesn't really touch on that. He doesn't record that for some reason. We don't know why, but yeah. Sayyid Ferdous, do you want to mention anything here?
Yes, basically, this part is also talking about a important thing, and that is that the Ansar were aware of the clashes that possible clashes with Quraysh and with the Muhajirun. So that's why that's their concern. And Sa'd ibn Ubada, as you can see here, thinks that this shows actually a weakness by the Ansar if they're so much worried about the conflict or the objection of Quraysh, because they say, as I don't know if you read the last part of this thing, that the Ansar said if they objected, then we can, if they did not accept, so to speak, the leadership of Sa'd ibn Ubada, then we can say let us have a leader for Ansar and one leader for Quraysh, so two leaders. One for Ansar and one for the Muhajirun. And Sa'd ibn Ubaydah does not like this statement from those Ansar people, and he says that this is the first step in showing weakness. So he kind of is disappointed that they do not show strength at this point, that nobody is from Quraysh is even there in the gathering. So yeah, that's the basic theme of this part. You can move on.
Umar learned of this and went to the Prophet's house and sent to Abu Bakr, meaning he sent for Abu Bakr, who was in the building. This building was obviously referring to the house of the Prophet. Okay, this is interesting. Now, Ali ibn Abi Talib was working busily preparing the apostle for burial. So Umar sent a message to Abu Bakr to come out. Abu Bakr sent back that he was occupied, meaning he sent a message back saying that he was busy. But Umar sent him another message saying something has happened that you must attend to in person. So he came out to him. Umar said to him, didn't you know that the Ansar have gathered at the shed of Banu Saidah, intending to put Sa'd ibn Ubadah in charge of this affair, meaning leadership? Even the best of them is saying a leader for us and a leader from the Quraysh. Okay, so this is Tabari. Now we can have a look at how al-Jawhari reports this, with slight different wording now. Ibn Qutaybah has not even mentioned this. He's not even recorded this at this point. None of these previous passages have been recorded. And he says, al-Jawhari says, and then the news reached Umar. So he came to the house of the Messenger of Allah and saw that Abu Bakr was there and Ali was busy with the ceremonial washing of the Messenger of Allah. And the person who brought him the news was Mian ibn Adee. So he held the hand of Umar and said, get up. Umar said, I'm busy. He said, you have to get up. So he stood up and he said to him, this group of Ansar have gathered in Saqifah Banu Saidah along with Sa'd ibn Ubadah. They are circling him and saying, we want you as a leader and your son after you. And then some other group of the nobles, and I fear that some disaster takes place. So think about what you want to do, O Umar, and make your companions from among the Muhajireen aware of this, and choose a leader for yourselves. Because I see the door of disaster has been opened this hour, unless Allah closes it. So Umar became frightened immensely until he went to Abu Bakr and he held his hand and said, get up. So Abu Bakr said, where did you want me to go and leave the Messenger of Allah? I'm busy and cannot go with you. Umar said, you have to get up and we will come back if Allah wants. So these are the two reports, one from Tabari. Al-Jawhari records something similar with interesting additions. One straight away, we've got an identity of a person who's the one who actually passes the message. Just want to make a quick comment on the fact, I find it slightly suspicious how Umar actually asks for Abu Bakr to come outside the house. As he kept it very discreet. And that's what Tabari reports. Tabari says that Umar sent a message to Abu Bakr to come out to him. Kept that quite private. Sayyid Ferdous, do you want to comment quickly?
This part is also important because it shows how the news of Saqifah reached to Abu Bakr and Umar. So basically, some person by the name of Mi'an ibn Adee. This has been narrated in many other reports as well. We have read some of these versions in the previous shows also, to I think Waqidi and some other reports that we presented. That this person Mi'an ibn Adee and some other Ansari. This is actually an Ansari, which is strange that he kind of was in favor of Abu Bakr and Umar and wanted to help that party. And some other historians like Zubair ibn Bakr and so on have mentioned that Ansar later they rebuked him, these two people from Ansar, that you betrayed us and went to bring the news to Abu Bakr and Umar. In any case, so Umar is sitting apparently in a mosque and waiting how the events will progress. So he is just busy waiting for Abu Bakr, and then the Imam Adee brings him this news, and then he becomes very frightened. So his antennas just so to speak turn on, and he is as the narration says, he became frightened immensely. He became very frightened, and immediately sent someone to Abu Bakr, who was inside the room, and said, you have to come out, and because there is something very important happening right now, and you have to attend in it. And it's interesting that they do not want to inform Imam Ali alayhi salam. So they do not want to inform him about this. They just want to participate in it by themselves. So it's also another interesting fact.
Continuing on from where we left off earlier. So the two of them hurried towards them, meaning the Ansar. They met Abu Bakr, they met ibn al-Jarrah, and the three of them marched towards them. There's Abu Bakr, there's Umar, and Abu Ubaidullah al-Jarrah. They were met with Asim ibn Adee and Owaim ibn Saida, who said, go back, for it will not be as you wish. But they refused to turn back and arrived while the Ansar were gathered. According to Umar ibn Khattab, we came to them, and I had pieced together a speech that I wanted to deliver to them. But when I had pushed in among them, I was about to begin my address. Abu Bakr said to me, easy does it, Umar, until I've spoken. Then afterwards, say what you wish. This has been reported by Tabari. If we move along, and the edition here, you can see it's slightly shorter. Al-Jawhari report is slightly shorter. And he says, Abu Bakr stood up with Umar, and he told him the news. So Abu Bakr became frightened immensely. So they went out in a hurry towards Saqifah ibn Saida. And there was a group of nobles of the Ansar who were gathered. And among them was Sa'd ibn Ubada. And he was ill and was sitting in front of them. Umar wanted to talk and pave the way for Abu Bakr. Umar said, I was afraid Abu Bakr might come short in speech. But whatever Umar had forgotten to prepare to say, Abu Bakr perfected it, and he said it. Stop. Then he continued talking after. And I wanted to start talking exactly as I thought. Now we'll come to Ibn Qutaybah. What did he say? Then the news reached Abu Bakr, so he became frightened immensely. Then Umar stood up with him, and they both went out in a hurry towards Saqifah ibn Saida, and they met Abu Ubaidah. So they went together until they entered the Saqifah of Banu Saida, and there was a group of nobles were gathered, and among them there was Sa'd ibn Ubada. So Umar wanted to start talking, and he said, I was afraid that Abu Bakr might come short in his speech. So when he wanted to start talking, Abu Bakr came forward and said to him, stop, I'll suffice you the talk, I'll save you the talk. And then coming back to Tabari now. So he spoke first, and there was nothing that I wanted to say that he did not come to or amplify it. According to Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman, Abu Bakr began by praising and exalting Allah. Then he said, verily God sent Muhammad as an apostle to his creatures. And then he basically, Abu Bakr gave the famous sermon which he's allegedly supposed to have given. This is what Tabari records. But coming now to, Al-Jawhari mentions something additional here, and it's been highlighted in red. Here, Abu Bakr is actually inviting them towards pledging their allegiance to either Abu Ubaidah or Umar. For I'm content for you with both of them to take this position, and I see both of them to be worthy of it. Then Umar and Abu Ubaidah said, it's not right for anyone to be over you. You're the companion of the cave, the second of the two, and the Messenger of Allah ordered you to lead the prayers, so you are the most deserving of this position. This is the addition that Al-Jawhari mentions. Tabari doesn't actually mention that. Then coming to Ibn Qutaybah. Again, Ibn Qutaybah has essentially recorded exactly the same thing, pretty much. Slight variation in words in the sermon of Abu Bakr. But then again, he confirms what Al-Jawhari mentions. So Ferdous, do you want to comment on it quickly before we move on?
Yes, basically, it's also interesting the thing that Abu Ubaidah here says at the last part that you read, that he says, the first thing that you see here in this narration is this one, I noticed, and that is the companion of the cave, and the second of the two. Actually, the second of the two in the verse of Quran that he mentions, does not refer to Abu Bakr. It refers to the Prophet. So even the argument is here is silly. Either they have manipulated or added this at the tongue of Abu Ubaidah later, because the verse says the second of the two is the person who talks to his companion and says, "Come down. Allah is with us." So the Prophet is talking to Abu Bakr allegedly in that story of the cave, that "Come down. They cannot kill us. Allah will protect us," and so on. So the second of the two actually refers to the Prophet. So it's not a title for Abu Bakr. Yeah, please continue.
So now here, Tabari actually stops reporting the incident. The incident is basically Tabari, that's it ends there. But al-Jawhari continues with this. And he says that the Ansar said, "By Allah, we neither envy you over any good thing that Allah has bestowed upon you, nor is anyone dearer to us or more preferred to us than you. However, we're afraid of the future, and we worry that someone might take over this position in the future, who's neither from among you nor among us. If you choose a person from among yourselves, we will pledge allegiance to him, and we will be content with him, with the condition that if he dies, we choose a man from among the Ansar." So then after it could be someone from among the Muhajireen, and so on till the Day of Judgment. This would be closer to the justice in the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Ansari would not be afraid of the Qurayshi, and the Qurayshi would oppress him, and that the Qurayshi would not be afraid that the Ansari would oppress him. Ibn Qutaybah has basically recorded exactly the same thing, with just slight variation of words. So Ferdous, do you want to comment quickly?
Yes, here the important thing is that the Ansar mentioned their concern of that they were actually concerned about that someone later might take this position who cannot be from the Ansar or from Quraysh, from Muhajireen. And that actually happened because the Bani Umayyah, Muawiyah, for example, who was neither a Muhajir or an Ansari, took over the power and his lineage, and later then the others took over the power. So that's a concern actually happened from Ansar. And the Ansar, they actually wanted to kind of have a kind of leadership that's at the time one leader should be elected from among Ansar, and then when he passes away, then they should select the next leader from Muhajireen, and when he dies, then back from Ansar, and so on and back and forth, so to speak, so that neither of the two groups dominate the other group and oppresses the other group. So, and also it's also very interesting that these Muhajireen and Ansar, they're concerned about the religion of Allah and the future of the Ummah. But Allah, apparently, according to them, their ideology does not care about that. And the Messenger of Allah did not care about that, apparently, allegedly, that he did not assign a leader or gave them a concept of who should be elected as a leader. The only thing that they say that the Imams should be from Quraysh. That's basically the thing that they accept. Also, a great point that if the Ansar already knew that the Prophet said the Imams are from Quraysh, why are they gathering and want to select a leader? Are they explicitly going against the statement of the Prophet? What's going on?
Okay, so al-Jawhari continues and he says, then Abu Bakr said, "Verily, when the Messenger of Allah was sent, it was hard for the Arab to abandon the religion. So they opposed him and they antagonized him. And Allah specialized the first Muhajireen from among his people with admitting to him and with the belief with him, and with being consoled to him, and with the patience alongside him against the intensity of the torment of his people. And they didn't become frightened due to the enemies and numbers. So they are the first ones who worship Allah on his earth, and they were the first ones who believe in the Messenger of Allah, and they are his friends and his progeny, and the most deserving for this position after him. No one would dispute with them over it except a wrongdoer. And there's no group after the Muhajireen higher in merit and have more antecedents in Islam like you have. So we are the leaders and you are the advisors. We did not proceed without your consultation, and no matter will be decided without you. So here Abu Bakr is stressing on the importance of the Muhajireen, their status and their rank, and the nexus that they have with the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him. Ibn Qutaybah quotes something very similar, and he goes into more detail about what Abu Bakr said in praise and virtue of the Muhajireen. And that was in response. It's interesting, I don't know if here, it doesn't really mention explicitly whether he had a problem with the Ansar coming into power. It doesn't really stress on that point. But he said, look, it should be us first, Muhajireen, before it's you. And if anything, you should be our advisors. And that's it. We're your leaders, you're our advisors. Now we come back to Tabari. Tabari continues at this point. So that particular section is missing from Tabari. Then Tabari says, then Al-Hubab al-Mundhir stood up and said, O company of the Ansar, take command of yourselves, for you overshadow other people. No one will dare oppose you if you do, nor will the people proceed except in accordance with your opinion. You are the people of power and wealth, numerous and strong in resistance and experience, having boldness and courage. People look only to what you do, so do not differ among yourselves, lest your judgment be spoiled and your cause collapse. This one, meaning Abu Bakr, insisted on what you have heard. So let a leader from among us and a leader from among them. Say Ferdous, do you want to comment on this?
No, I think this part is basically straightforward, that the objection comes from Hubab ibn Munzir, and he says that at the end of the day, if you do not agree that we should take the lead, then we have to select one leader from among us, and you can select one leader for yourselves.
At this, Umar said, absolutely not. Two cannot come to agreement in joining. By God, the Arabs will not be content to give you the leadership when their prophet was not one of you, but they would not prevent their affairs from being led by one of those among whom prophethood had appeared, and from whom the guardian of their affairs was chosen. And the fact is manifest argument and clear proofs for us against those Arabs who deny it. Who would attempt to wrest from us the sovereignty, Sultan of Muhammad and his authority, seeing that we are his friends and kinsmen, except someone advancing falsehood, inclining to sin, or hurtling in destruction? So for those who want to comment on this.
Yes, I think the important thing here is that the objection of Umar is that they're actually the inheritors of the Prophet's legacy. So it's very interesting that they put themselves forward with the argument that they're closer to the Prophet and they're from his tribe, but they neglect his family. They neglect the family of the Prophet. Basically, as you mentioned here, all three historians mentioned the same thing from Umar. So it's basically the same passage in all three variations there. Yeah, thanks.
Hubab ibn Munzir stood up again and said, O company of the Ansar, take charge of your own affairs and do not listen to what this one and his companion say, meaning Abu Bakr and Umar, for they would do away with your share in this matter. If they refuse to give you what you ask for, then drive them out of this country, meaning kick Abu Bakr and Umar outside, and drive them out of the country and seize control of these matters despite them. For you are more deserving of this authority than they are, as it was by your swords that those who were not yet converted came to obey this religion. I am their much rubbed little rubbing post, and their propped little palm tree loaded with fruit. By God, if you wish to return it as a stump, then do so. So this is what Tabari recorded, this is what al-Jawhari recorded, pretty much, and this is what Ibn Qutaybah recorded. There's no objection. They're generally in agreement with that. Do you want to make a comment here, Sayyid Ferdous?
So Hubab ibn Munzir insists on his position, and says that basically don't listen to Umar and Abu Bakr, just take lead. saying to Ansar, and says, if you don't, expel them, the Muhajireen, if they oppose you, and if I will take, if anybody here objects to my statement, I will confront him with my sword. So he's actively threatening Muhajireen there.
Okay, and then continuing on from Tabari, Umar said, then may God kill you. And Al-Hubab replied, rather may Allah kill you. At this, Abu Ubaidah said, O company of the Ansar, you were the first who hoped and strengthened, so do not be the first to substitute and change for the worse. Al-Jawhari stops, he doesn't record this. But interestingly, let's have a look at what Ibn Qutaybah says. He says, Umar ibn Khattab said, when from among them Hubab responded to me, I did not want to reply back to him. So Ibn Qutaybah actually says that Umar didn't want to give him a response back. So that whole confrontation where Umar said, may God kill you, and Hubab saying, rather may Allah kill you. Umar said, from among them, Hubab responded to me, and I didn't want to reply back to him because there was a dispute between me and him during the lifetime of the Prophet, who he prohibited me from fighting him. So I took an oath that I will not say a bad word to him ever again. Then Ubaidah said, O company of the Ansar, you're the first, etc., etc. So here now we got two totally conflicting reports. Tabari mentions the actual threat between them, the confrontation, and then you've got Ibn Qutaybah who actually censors that. Coming back to Tabari, then he says, Bashir ibn Sa'd, rather of al-Nu'man ibn Bashir, stood up and said, O company of the Ansar, if indeed by God we were in the first in the merit, in the battling, in the polytheists, in their precedence in this religion, we would want by these deeds only to gain our Lord's pleasure and obedience to our Prophet and sustenance for our souls. It's not appropriate for us to exalt ourselves over the people. Let us not speak by it some transitory thing of the world. For indeed God is the one who provides such things for us, of his grace. In truth, Muhammad was from the Quraysh, and his people are more entitled to hold authority and more suitable. I swear by God that he shall never see me contesting to this matter with them. So fear God and do not oppose them or dispute with them. So this was what Tabari records in reference to Bashir ibn Sa'd. Al-Jawhari records something slightly different here. He says, Bashir saw that the Ansar have agreed upon choosing Sa'd ibn Ubada. Tabari doesn't mention this. So here, Al-Jawhari mentions that they agreed on now choosing Sa'd ibn Ubada as the leader. He said when Bashir ibn Sa'd al-Khazraj saw that the Ansar have agreed upon choosing Sa'd ibn Ubada as the leader, he used to envy him. So here Al-Jawhari records some interesting information, something extra. And that was what Bashir thought of Sa'd. And that was that fact that he envied him, something which Tabari didn't mention. So it gives us a bit more insight. Ibn Qutaybah essentially quotes exactly the same thing. The fact that he envied Sa'd ibn Ubada. Do you want to comment, bro? Anything here?
Yeah. So basically, here an important fact of why there was not unity among the Ansar. So why there were so many different opinions, and why their stance was weak. Here we see another factor there, and that is the betrayal of Bashir ibn Sa'd, due to their cause, of course. From our point, the entire thing was a betrayal to the Prophet, to the religion. But in any case, Bashir ibn Sa'd, he is betraying the Ansar, their cause to choose Sa'd ibn Ubadah, because he used to envy him. So he was basically from the same tribe, and he wasn't also from their heads, from the heads of the tribe of Khazraj, but the absolute leader was Sa'd ibn Ubadah, but he used to envy him, so he did not want the Ansar to choose Sa'd ibn Ubadah as the leader. That's why he swung to the side of Abu Bakr and Umar, to the side of Quraysh, and he basically weakened their position. And also later we will see that he will he was the first one, even before Umar, he was the first one who jumped and pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr, just because he used to envy Sa'd ibn Umar and did not want to have him as his leader.
Okay, coming back to Tabari. At this, Abu Bakr said, "This is Umar and this is Abu Ubaidah. Render the oath of allegiance to whichever of them you wish." But they both said, "No, by God, we shall not undertake or hold this authority over you, for you are the best of the Muhajireen, the second of the two, when they were in the cave, and the apostle of God's deputy over the prayer, and prayer is the most notorious obedience of the Muslims. So who should precede you or undertake this authority over you? Extend out your hands so we may render the oath of allegiance to you." And when the two of them went forth to render the oath of allegiance to him, Bashir ibn Sa'd went to him ahead of them and swore allegiance to him first. At this, Hubab ibn al-Mundhir shouted to him, "O Bashir ibn Sa'd, you are in opposition to your kinsman. What drove you to do what you have done? Did you envy your cousin, the sovereignty?" He replied, "By God, no. I abhorred contending with a group for a right that God had given them." Al-Jawhari records the same thing, just slightly shorter to what Tabari reports. Ibn Qutaybah pretty much records the same thing, no extra addition.
Yeah, basically here you see that the Hubab ibn Munzir, who was previously threatening them for the sword, he just exposed Bashir ibn Sa'd, that he was basically, you did this because you envy Sa'd ibn Ubada and you do not want him to take lead. So that's why you betrayed us, basically.
Okay, coming back to Tabari. So obviously the Ansar had two tribes, the Aus and the Khazraj. So when the Aus saw that what Bashir ibn Sa'd had done and what the Quraysh had called for and what the Khazraj were demanding by way of giving the sovereign to Sa'd ibn Ubadah, they said to one another, and among them was a Sayyid ibn Khudayr, one of the chiefs, "By God, if once you appoint the Khazraj over you, you will always have the advantage over you on that account, and we will never give you any share in it with them. So stand up and render the oath of allegiance to Abu Bakr." So they came forth to him and rendered the oath of allegiance to him. Thus, which Sa'd ibn Ubadah and the Khazraj had agreed to do was defeated. Again, Al-Jawhari does not even mention that part, he just mentions part of it. And Ibn Qutaybah mentions pretty much the same thing with the addition here. So they stood up and pledged allegiance to him. Then Hubab ibn al-Mundhir stood up to take his sword. So they jumped over him and took away his sword. So he started hitting them with his robe until they finished pledging allegiance. And then he said, "You did it, O group of Ansar. By Allah, it's as if I see your children behind the doors of their children, begging them, but they would not even be given water." Then Abu Bakr said, "From us do you fear, O Hubab?" He said, "I do not fear from you, but from those who come after you." Abu Bakr said, "If it happens as you say, then the decision is with you and your companions. There will be no obedience from us over you." Hubab said, "Nay, Abu Bakr, when you and I go, a people will come to us who will subject us to oppression." And for those who want to comment on this.
Yes. Here we see another point for the Ansar of why their stance became weaker and weaker. Basically, the second rival tribe, which of the Ansar, which is the tribe of Aus, whose leader was Usayd ibn Hudayr. And this name, we mentioned them in previous shows. Usayd ibn Hudayr himself, was later was with the group who came to the house of Fatima, the attack, and he actively was participating in arresting Zubair. We read him in multiple sources that he was actually with Umar, who came and took the sword of Zubair, and they broke it to the rock. So the Aus, which was under his lead, Usayd ibn Udair, he also envied Sa'd ibn Ubada, who was the rival tribe, their rival tribe, the Khazraj. So he, due to his envy, he also jumped to the other side, so to speak, to give the leadership to Abu Bakr and Umar, to Muhajireen, basically, or the few people that were present from Muhajireen. And after the leader of such a great big tribe pledged allegiance, then his entire tribesmen who were with him, so they pledged allegiance too. So this is basically another point to which makes sense to the entire story of why their position became suddenly weak and what happened actually. In their standard stories about or reports about Saqifah, you do not see these details or most of these details. You can find some of these in the other books as well, some passages, but not the entire story as we see here in one piece. Or they will have a slightly different events if you compare them side by side. Any case, and also the thing that Abu Bakr is basically promising them that if such a thing happens, that after us the Quraysh or Muhajireen oppresses the Ansar, then at that point you have the option to not obey us. So basically, you can then, if later we oppress you, you can create your own leadership. Basically, he fooled them, because that would never happen if the power of the Quraysh or Abu Bakr and Umar is established already, then the Ansar would have no power against them. So that's basically what happened. And they have also so many narrations about the Ansar that they will be oppressed. So their authentic narrations say that the prophets told to Ansar that after me you will be oppressed. And basically that's really what happened also. And the first step of this oppression was, of course, here Abu Bakr fooling them with these soft and nice things to say about what he promises there, so to speak, to them.
And you can see now Tabari mentions something additional, and he says that Hisham Abu Bakr ibn Muhammad al-Khuzai said Aslam approached en masse until the streets were packed with them, and they rendered the oath of allegiance to Abu Bakr. Umar used to say, it was not until I saw Aslam, I mean the tribe of Aslam, I was certain we had won the day, meaning that we achieved what we wanted to on the matter of leadership. Now we'll come to another report, which all three historians, all three scholars have reported. And this was the incident when Sa'd ibn Ubada refused to pledge their allegiance. So this report comes through Abu Maknaf again, and it says, people approached from all sides swearing allegiance to Abu Bakr, and they almost stepped on Sa'd ibn Ubada. Some of Sa'd's associates said, be careful not to step on Sa'd. At this, Umar said, kill him, may God slay him. Then he stepped on his head, saying, I intend to tread upon you until your arm is dislocated. Nice. Now remember, this is Sa'd ibn Ubada. He's not even well at this moment in time. Poor guy. And you got Umar acting like a hero, going for a vulnerable man, a sick man. Sa'd, in response to that, and this is a man who's not well, so it goes to show you what type of strength he had as well over Umar. He took hold of Umar's beard and said, by God, if you remove a single hair from it, you'll return with it, with no front two teeth in your mouth. And Abu Bakr said, take it easy, Umar. Compassion would be more effective at this point. So Umar turned away from him. Sa'd said, by God, if I had the strength to get up, you would have heard from me in the regions and the streets of Medina, roaring in a way that would make you and your companions take cover. By God, I shall join to you a group from among whom you would be a follower, not a leader. Now carry me from this place. So Sa'd ibn Ubada absolutely obliterated Umar. He was lucky that day, actually, he wasn't feeling well, because he probably would have removed his two front teeth, because even Umar didn't even object to that, right? But anyway, al-Jawhari reports something similar. He doesn't really mention the confrontation as in much detail, especially when it comes to the threat. You can go back and have a look at this yourself, and you can compare what he says additional to that. Ibn Qutaybah reports the same thing. He does mention something additional. He says Bashir ibn Sa'd said he has indeed already refused to do this, and he is stubborn, meaning Sa'd ibn Ubada was stubborn. And he will not pledge allegiance to you even if you fight him. He will not be killed until his children will be killed with him, and his family and his tribesmen, and you will not be able to kill him until you kill the Khazraj. Then it carries on. Tabari says, when Abu Bakr was informed of this, Umar said to him, pester him until he renders the oath of allegiance. But Bashir ibn Sa'd said, he has refused and he has made up his mind, and he wouldn't render his oath of allegiance to you even if he were to be killed, and he would not be killed without his children and his family and the party of his kinsmen being killed with him. So leave him alone. Leaving him won't harm you. He is only one man. So they left him alone. They came to accept the advice of Bashir ibn Sa'd, consulting him whenever it seemed right to do so. Sa'd ibn Ubadah never used to pray with them or congregate with them, and especially this would have included Jummah prayers, right? Which they believe if you miss one or two of them or three of them, then you end up leaving the religion. But goes to show you, Sa'd ibn Ubadah didn't even want to pray behind them. He didn't even want to pray behind Abu Bakr and Umar. But interestingly, they would still consult with him, even the fact that he was in opposition to them. One of the things that people bring up as well when it comes to the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, why did their opponents consult them? Of course, there was a reason for that. When it was needed, they used to advise people as well. And as you can see, Sa'd ibn Ubadah was following pursuit to this, he was doing something similar. And then it says, but he did not press on with him. Then it says, he performed the pilgrimage to Mecca, but did not press on with them in the multitudes. He continued thus until Abu Bakr died. Now, al-Jawhari reports the same thing, but he does have an addition here. He mentions something quite interesting, and he says that, so he did not used to pray together with them, and he would not participate in their congregations, and he would not go to them as judges. And if he could find supporters, he would have fought them. So he stayed in this state until Abu Bakr died. Then, interestingly, okay, this is what Tabari doesn't mention. Al-Jawhari does. He says, then he met Umar during his caliphate while he was riding a horse, and Umar was riding a camel. So Umar said to him, Nay, O Sa'd. So Sa'd said, Nay, O Umar. So he said, you're the companion of the person whom you know. He said, yes, I am. So he said to Umar, by Allah, no one is neighboring me who is more disliked by me than you. So here, Sa'd is making it very clear explicitly that he hates Umar. This is supposed to be, people talk about the Dala of the Sahaba, just as Sahaba, or if you dislike a Sahaba, if you hate a Sahaba. Here, Sa'd is making it very explicit. If he had the support, he would have raised rebellion against Abu Bakr and Umar. And to the point, he's made it very clear that he can't even stand Umar. And then he says, by Allah, no one is neighboring me who is more disliked by me than you. He hates Umar's guts. Then Umar said, if a man dislikes to live near someone whom he hates, he should leave the place. See here, Umar is just saying that. Umar didn't even give him a fatwa. Nowadays you have people who say, oh, you commit blasphemy against Sahaba. According to Umar goes, look, if you have such an issue with me, then why are you living here? Why didn't you go move away? So Sa'd said, I'm hoping to leave this place to you soon and move to the neighborhood of those more dearer to me than you and your companions. So Sa'd did not stay long before he set out towards Sham. He died in Haran and did not pledge allegiance to anyone, neither Abu Bakr nor to Umar or anyone else. And the people gathered around Abu Bakr and most Muslims pledged allegiance to him at that day. So this is what al-Jawhari mentions about Sa'd ibn Ubadah and how he had this staunch opposition to Abu Bakr and Umar. He never used to pray with them. He never used to consult with them. He couldn't stand them. And to the point where he actually left and migrated and he went to Syria. Ibn Qutaybah essentially records something pretty much identical. And you can see that there's strong emphasis here as well about the fact that why it wouldn't have been advisable for Umar to even raise his hands against this individual because of the implications of what would occur with that, because of the loyalty that he had in terms of his family members. They would have supported him, his companions, etc. You want to make a point, bro, here?
Yeah, here basically the important things are that that Sa'd ibn Ubadah did not pledge allegiance. So just the last show we showed that there was one report that they wanted to authenticate and use it a lot, that Sada actually accepted the statement of Abu Bakr being the Muhajireen, the leaders, and they the advisors. But here we see, and also there are other authentic reports in say Bukhari, say Muslim, and so on, that he did not accept that. And Omar even said, as you read already here, that said, "May Allah kill him." So they even physically harmed them there. He was an old sick man, but despite that, Umar's violent nature in this case is shown in great detail here in these events that we read today. Also, the other thing is that Sa'd ibn Ubadah was carried out of there after pledging allegiance. The other people of Ansar pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr. Then Umar advised Abu Bakr to send someone to Sa'd also to bring him or force him to pledge allegiance. But Bashir ibn Sa'd, who was his cousin, the person who betrayed him, basically, who first pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr, he advised Abu Bakr and Umar to not do so, because then the code of loyalty of Ansar might activate, so might get activated, so to speak, and then his family and his tribe and even else, as they are all from the Ansar, they might support him against you. So basically, he warns them and says that don't do that. And Abu Bakr, who was more intelligent, accepted that advice. But Umar later, had a different opinion. In any case, after Umar became caliph, then as here we saw, he kind of, Sa'd ibn Ubadah did not want to stay anymore there. So he left, and he mysteriously died in Sham, in Damascus, or in Hawran, as it's mentioned here. And they have even in their history books that reports that jinn killed him. Jinn. So that's also an interesting thing. Most probably they have just assassinated him. Someone by the order of Umar, most probably, because he was his top enemy. Anyways, these are the details of his stance at Saqifah.
And now we'll look at al-Jawhari to see what he says. And then Bani Hashim gathered around Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and Zubair was with them, and he used to consider himself a man from among Bani Hashim. And Ali alayhi salam used to say this, but Zubair did not cease to be one of us, meaning the Ahlul Bayt, until the children grew up and deviated him from us. And Banu Umayyah gathered around Usman ibn Affan, and Banu Zuhra gathered around Sa'd and Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. Then Umar and Abu Ubaidah came to them and said, why am I still seeing people? Meaning, why are you people still standing around? Get up and pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr, as people have already pledged allegiance to him, and so did the Ansar. So Usman and those who were with him got up and pledged allegiance to him. Then Sa'd and Abdul Rahman and those who were with them got up and pledged allegiance to him. Then Umar went out with a group of men to the house of Sayyidah Fatima. Among them was Usayd ibn Hudayr and Salama ibn Aslam, and said to them, come out and pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr, but they refused. Then Zubair came out to them with his sword. So Umar said, get this dog. So Salama ibn Aslam jumped over him and took away the sword from his hand and struck it on the wall. So not even struck it on the stone. Ibn Qutaybah mentions something similar. He pretty much narrates the same thing, which is slightly bit more information, and then he carries on and he says, as about Ali and Al-Abbas and Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib and those who were with them from among Bani Hashim, they then left to their house, and Zubair ibn al-Awam was with them. Then Umar went to them with a group of men, and among them was Usayd ibn Hudayr and Salama ibn Aslam, and said, come out and pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr, but they refused. Then Al-Zubair came out with his sword. So Umar said, get him. So they arrested him, and Salama ibn Aslam jumped on him, took away the sword from his hand, and struck it on the wall. And they took the pledge of allegiance, and Bani Hashim went too, and they pledged allegiance. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Sayyid Ferdous, and inshallah you can just give a quick summary of what you want to express on these two passages, and then inshallah Sayyid Nazim Shah can continue.
Here the important thing is that Tabari, or the report in Tabari, ends here. So it's completely empty of the part of how the pledge of allegiance happened for Bani Hashim. So how they did their allegiance to Abu Bakr, and also Amir al-Mu'minin and Zubair ibn Awwam. So we see the same thing, that even Tabari, who has narrated some details in some other narrations, previous show and the other shows that we mentioned, it comes to some parts that even Tabari does not like, and that is the details that we see for these narrations, like Jawhari and Ibn Qutaybah have mentioned. So he ends it here. And this is the only narration, as we saw from Abi Mikhnaf about Saqifah. We said in the previous shows that he doesn't narrate anything. It's not actually anything. This is the one narration, but it doesn't have anything about the pledge of allegiance of Bani Hashim and the attack and so on. So those details are missing from the narration of Abi Mikhnaf from Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahman al-Ansari. So, and also we see the same other details, like the attack on the house, and Usayd ibn Huzayr, this head of Ansar, the tribe of Aus, was with them, and he was actually participating in arresting Zubair. That's another important point that I mentioned, that we presented basically the same thing, the same details, also through many several reports that in previous shows. So basically the same details that we had before. I think we will see the other details of what was said when the Amir al-Mu'minin was taken to pledge allegiance, and what happened of the incidents after that. So we will continue to discuss these in the next shows, inshallah. Thanks.
Thank you, Sayyid Al-Imam and Sayyid Ferdous. When you read these traditions, or you look at them in some detail, that the narrative put forward by contemporary Sunni scholars and academics is so visibly following the traditional ideology of trying to hide any differences between the Sahaba. And we have Farid and his Keystone Corps equivalent of the Sunni defense carrying on with this deception on their viewership. So we have Ibn Qutaybah and Jawhari and Tabari, who to some extent are all guilty of self-censorship. The problem is they were just not competent enough to coordinate amongst themselves which parts to obscure and delete. So they've all picked up certain angles of the narrative and tried to sanitize the aspects that they thought were the most damaging. But what has come through is that Umar came and collected Abu Bakr and told him, come on, lad, we need to get on with this. There's a group over there who are going to take the leadership. So they went over. And it's also interesting to note that Umar didn't have any confidence in Abu Bakr's ability to convince people. Umar cobbled together a speech on the way, decided to give that speech in favor of Abu Bakr, and Abu Bakr, actually being the more manipulative, if not the better orator, stopped him and sealed the deal. They played off the Ansar, who ignored the clear hadith of the Prophet that the leaders are going to be from Quraysh, and who were entertaining hopes of being leaders. So, we have this evidence here that the Sahaba at the time were either willfully ignorant of the Prophet's traditions, or they decided to strategically ignore them for their own personal benefits. We have a Sahabi who didn't know who the second of the two was in the cave. And then we have Sa'd ibn Ubaidah, who made clear his hatred for Umar. And all of this is because of leadership. power, the desire to hold power, the same leadership that the Prophet had told his companions, whether they were Ansar or the Muhajirs, that leadership belongs to the Quraysh, and that the Bani Hashim were the most favored amongst the Quraysh. They had a status that was beyond all the other tribes of the Quraysh, and yet these people were squabbling over leadership, and it puts into perspective the atrocities they committed to consolidate that power and to retain that power from the obvious threats. Now, Sa'd ibn Ubada, the arch enemy of Umar, was mysteriously murdered by, as Sayyid Ferdous said in a report, jinns. Now, yes, I think that's a thinly veiled euphemism to say he was assassinated by any stretch of the imagination. And then we have the obvious discord between Sahabas, who are all ignoring the traditions of the Prophet, simply so they can have a stake in the power struggle which is going on behind the backs of the Banu Hashim and the Prophet's family. You've got to remember that this struggle or this interaction in Saqifah Bani Sada was taking place whilst the Prophet was being prepared for burial. It's not something that's happened before. It's not something that's happened after. These companions had turned successorship to the Prophet into a political game, into a political football, and they had excluded all the legitimate players in this competition by taking their match to a hidden location without telling anyone, and doing it at a time where all the righteous Sahaba, all the genuine companions, were busy assisting the Prophet's family in the funeral and burial arrangements. So, rather a dark day in the history of Islam. And of course, the true benefit of this discord and this power struggle went to the Banu Umayyah. So you had Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah, his son, who were waiting in the sidelines for this power struggle to carry on, so they could carve out their own niche kingdoms in the Muslim world, whilst the Sahaba were too busy trying to denounce each other and to actually overpower their rival factions. And it was this act of Umar and Abu Bakr which, in my humble opinion, led to Yazid coming to power and committing the atrocities that he did against the family of the Prophet. And as far as I'm concerned, Umar will have to pay for those crimes. Just he empowered the Banu Umayyah and Yazid to come into power. But this is where we will leave this show. And next week, inshallah, the remaining part of the narration and other supporting narrations to give us a better and clearer view of what actually took place. And as you will no doubt be able to appreciate now, the incident at the door of the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib and the daughter of the Prophet, may peace and blessings be on them, is not an isolated incident. It's a part of a power struggle, the consolidation of an illegitimately obtained authority on the part of the first and second caliphs, which actually led to this event. I shall leave this here for today, and inshallah, I will speak to you all next week when we shall bring this part of the discussion to a conclusion. It's Allah Hafiz from me and everyone here at Bayt al-Ghadir, and inshallah, we will see you soon.